Tony saw through his foster brother's tricks at a glance. He knew the foster brother would intentionally cut his wrist a minute later, then blame everything on him. On the surface, he pretended to have an allergy, but in reality, he used a knife to injure himself and slander him. Such schemes were second nature to him. But just at that moment, Tony's thoughts were heard by his 3 older sisters. None of them believed him though. In their eyes, the foster brother was a naturally kind-hearted person. The next moment, they realized they were wrong. The foster brother acted exactly as Tony predicted. Seeing the scene unfold before them, the 3 sisters looked at each other in shock. But the foster brother continued slandering Tony, unaware that his secret had been exposed to the sisters. Only then did they realize that this seemingly innocent foster brother was far less pure than they had imagined. It turned out, Tony was actually the long-lost young heir of a wealthy neighboring family. After being found by his family years ago, he discovered they had taken in a foster son in his absence. To gain the family's sympathy, the foster son often used various tactics to bully him, and even frame him. Over time, the 3 sisters lost trust in Tony. Instead, they showered affection on the foster brother, even planning to sever their family ties with Tony. When the eldest sister brought out the agreement to sever ties, Tony saw her future. Her future was filled with tragedy. Her husband cheated during her pregnancy, her company was swindled by the foster brother, and she ultimately succumbed to depression and took her own life. After seeing this future, Tony sighed at her pitiful fate. But the second sister remained oblivious, not realizing that the brother before her had a different soul. The reason Tony could see the future was because he was a 1,000-year-old deity. Due to a failed tribulation, his soul had crossed into this body. At this moment, the third sister, a doctor, helped the foster brother into the room. The foster brother immediately pretended to plead for Tony's forgiveness, hoping to show off his maturity, which brought about the opening scene. Seeing Tony's thoughts come true, the eldest sister finally began to doubt the foster brother. She recalled something Tony had mentioned in a letter before. The foster brother would destroy this family. She immediately decided to investigate the truth, and announced she would take Tony home first. On the way to the parking lot to get the car, Tony was distracted by a roadside barbecue stall. He wanted to buy a few skewers, but the owner said his equipment had broken down and he couldn't light a fire. Tony offered to start the fire for him, in exchange for some free skewers. The owner was skeptical, but Tony immediately cast a spell. With a flash of golden light, Tony walked away from the stall holding several skewers. At that moment, a luxury car suddenly sped toward him. At the critical moment, Tony raised his hand. A golden palm imprint appeared out of thin air, forcibly stopping the car. Before Tony could react, a wealthy young woman stepped out of the car. Everyone was stunned to realize the person in the car was the richest man. He was having a heart attack and urgently needed medical attention. But Tony glanced at him and declared he wouldn't live past a minute. There wasn't enough time to reach a hospital. He would be pronounced dead before arriving. However, Tony said he could save him, but only if the luxury car was given to him in exchange. The young woman was furious. She thought he was crazy. She was about to kick him out, when the eldest sister returned just in time. She quickly explained that Tony had just been discharged from the hospital and wasn't thinking straight.